Have you ever noticed how people treat what is rare as sacred? A gem locked in glass draws reverence. A book out of print becomes a treasure. A person who is not always available becomes magnetic. You text them. They don't reply immediately. Your mind races. Did I say something wrong? Are they okay? Are they with someone else? Suddenly, silence becomes louder than words. Now think of yourself, always replying, always present, always available, but somehow always ignored. This is not about playing games. This is about energy. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." So let me ask you, what if the reason your world feels out of control is because you've handed out the currency of your presence too freely? We are taught to equate love with availability. To respond quickly means we care. To always be there means we are good people. But beneath that surface lies a dangerous erosion of mystery, of value, of power. When you're always there, people start to believe you have nowhere else to be. When you respond instantly, they assume no one else is calling your name. You become an open tab, always active but never remembered. And here's the truth. Attention is energy, and energy must be respected. If not, it gets consumed, depleted, wasted. Jung understood this. In his exploration of the psyche, he warned of the danger of projections. When you're constantly available, you become the screen for everyone else's movie. Their drama, their fears, their needs. You begin to vanish in the roles they cast for you. You are not a character in someone else's play. You are the director of your own. But to reclaim that role, you must first pull back. Not in anger, not in resentment, in clarity. The first boundary is time. Stop being a slave to the notification. Let people wait. Let their minds wander. Create space. The second boundary is emotion. You do not owe your emotional labor to everyone who asks for it. You are not a therapist on demand. The third boundary is access. Who has earned the right to you? Not everyone who knocks should be let in, because when you're no longer easy to reach, you become valuable to find. When you're no longer flooding others with your energy, they start to notice the drought when you're gone. And that's where the shift begins. The silence becomes your message. The absence becomes your statement. The boundary becomes your magnetism. So perhaps the most powerful thing you can do is to disappear just enough for the world to remember what your presence actually feels like. Let them wonder, let them reach, let them realize. Because when you stop being available, you don't become less loving. You become more respected. And from respect, true connection is born. In the next chapter, we'll ask the harder question: what happens when the ones you love begin to resent your silence? Stay with me. The unraveling has only just begun. They say you've changed. They say you've become distant, cold, unrecognizable. The same people who drained you now blame you for building a dam. It begins with subtle jabs. A sigh when you don't answer. A passive comment about how you're too busy now. Then comes the guilt, the heavy kind, the kind that makes you question your sanity, your heart, your right to rest. Have you felt it? That creeping voice in your mind whispering, maybe they're right. Maybe I am selfish now. But no, this isn't selfishness. This is sobriety. The moment you woke up from the lie that said, love equals sacrifice, The people who benefited from your constant availability will always mourn the version of you who had no boundaries, not because they loved you more back then, but because you were easier to control. When you reclaim your space, they feel abandoned, but what they really miss is access. This is the paradox of healing. You grow and they grieve. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, apart from the masks and roles others gave you. And often this journey includes loss, not just of people, but of illusions. You start to see that love isn't always reciprocal, that just because you gave endlessly doesn't mean they valued it, that some people don't miss you, they miss the feeling of being needed by someone who didn't need themselves. So the guilt they give you, it's not yours to carry. It belongs to the part of them that refuses to grow, the part that clings, the part that manipulates. Let me be clear. Setting a boundary does not make you cruel. Choosing silence does not make you heartless. Refusing to explain yourself does not make you arrogant. It makes you free. But freedom often comes dressed in loneliness at first, because the ones who loved your cage will never applaud your escape. You'll feel the ache of distance, the awkward silences, the unanswered messages. You'll feel the urge to explain, to soften, to return. Don't. Because true healing begins when you stop justifying your peace. So if they say you've changed, smile, because you have. You're no longer the version of yourself that bled to keep the room warm. You're no longer addicted to being understood. You've learned to let misunderstanding exist without needing to fix it. Let the guilt be theirs. Let the peace be yours. In Chapter 3, we'll go deeper. What does it look like to rebuild your life from this new silence? A silence not of absence, but of intention. Let's continue. Silence is not an empty space. It's a container. And when you stop filling your days with noise, demands, and duties, you begin to see what was always waiting underneath. Your truth. Not the version others sculpted. Not the persona you wore to belong, but the core of you, the one who never needed to beg to be seen. So what happens after the silence? You begin again, not from what was broken, but from what was buried. This is the quiet work, the unglamorous phase of rebuilding. When the world is no longer distracting you and you're left face to face with yourself. At first, it feels like emptiness. But look closer, that emptiness is freedom. Freedom from over-explaining. Freedom from performing. Freedom from the invisible contracts you signed just to feel loved. Now you choose differently. You wake up and listen. Not to your notifications, but to your needs. You move through the day not with urgency, but with awareness. You learn that solitude isn't loneliness, it's self-returning. This is when your new life begins to take form. Not loudly, not with applause, but quietly, like roots growing underground. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. You stop asking for permission to exist. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this silence, this rebuilding, it's you making the unconscious conscious. You start to see the patterns, the loops, the wounds you dressed as habits, and instead of avoiding them, you sit with them. You face the mirror. You finally see the child inside who just wanted to feel safe. You give that child what no one else did: protection, boundaries, peace. You no longer build your life around being chosen. You build it around being whole. So what does rebuilding look like? It looks like less, fewer people, fewer explanations, fewer masks. But what remains is real. In Chapter 4, we'll explore the power that rises when others begin to feel your absence. Not as punishment, but as revelation. What they see when you're no longer available might just be who you really are. Let's keep going. There is something sacred in absence. Not the absence of neglect, but the absence of noise, of constant proving, of being everywhere for everyone. At first, they notice the gap, the missing piece, the quiet where your voice used to fill the air. Then something else happens. They begin to see you, perhaps for the first time. Because now you're not performing, you're not explaining, you're not overextending. You're simply gone. Absence is not emptiness. It's an unveiling. It forces people to confront the space you used to fill, and more importantly, to ask why they never valued it while it was there. Some will grow, some will run, some will stay confused, but all will be impacted. You've shifted the dynamic. You are no longer the ever-present rescuer. You are no longer the background noise to their chaos. You've become a mirror. Carl Jung spoke often of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we hide, repress, or deny. Your absence shines light on theirs. In your silence, they are forced to listen to their own. In your withdrawal, they are forced to confront their dependency. And in that confrontation, something new emerges: accountability. They may try to guilt you back, to bait you with old roles, to rewind the tape of who you used to be. But if you stay steady, something deeper will take root. Respect, because absence teaches what presence could not, that you are not a guarantee, that your energy is not infinite, that your love is not without cost. And while some may resent it, the ones who truly care will rise. They will meet you not in demand, but in understanding, not in need, but in reciprocity. This is how your absence becomes a filter, a clearing. Let those who can't meet you in your truth fade into the distance. Let those who remain do so because they see your soul, not just your service. So now they see it. Not the old you scrambling to earn love, but the real you standing in sovereignty. And what they see is power, not loud, not forceful, but rooted, silent, unshakable. In the final chapter, we ask the question that changes everything. What happens when you no longer need them to see you at all? Let's end this where it truly begins. There comes a moment when even recognition feels like a cage. You've spent so long trying to be seen, to be understood, to be loved in ways that felt familiar, even when they were painful. But now you understand, freedom was never about being visible. It was about being you, with or without an audience. The deepest healing is silent. It does not announce itself. It does not need applause. It does not demand validation. It just is. Carl Jung taught that wholeness is not perfection. It is integration, the marriage of light and shadow, the self and the unseen. And when you no longer seek to be seen, something beautiful happens. You begin to witness yourself. Your laughter no longer performs. Your stillness no longer apologizes. Your boundaries no longer tremble. You are no longer trying to prove you're enough. You know that you are. And what's more, you begin to find peace in places where you once sought permission. In your solitude, you find clarity. In your quiet, you find power. In your unseen, you find freedom. Because now, you're no longer haunted by their approval. You're no longer chained to their expectations. You're no longer desperate to be chosen. You've chosen you. And in doing so, you've unlocked the final door. The door that leads inward, to the place no one can touch, to the sanctuary that was never lost, only hidden. So here you are, not waiting, not chasing, just being, fully, quietly, powerfully, because the greatest revolution is to exist unapologetically without needing to be seen at all, not invisible, but untouchable. That is freedom, that is individuation, that is the final becoming.